Welcome to a Nothing from Nothing production. Hello, everybody. This is Mark Christopher with Bill Turley, and this is the Junction Podcast, a podcast about growing up in Brooklyn in the 1970s and 80s. We're hoping to protect the names of the innocent as well as the extremely guilty, and there were plenty of those. Well, here goes. Welcome back to the Brooklyn Junction, and we want to thank Tom Turley for the last few episodes stepping in for his brother. But where's his brother been? His brother Bill. Bill has returned. Maybe we'll give you a little hint, and you could tell us where Bill's been. Welcome back, Bill.
Hey, thank you. Domo arigato, as they say in Japan.
What's up?
So we're going to spend some time talking about the New York City subway and our experiences in the New York City subway. Just want to hit the listeners with a couple of interesting facts. The New York City subway actually opened up in 1904. Okay, so you're talking about a rail system that's been around for over 100 years, and it's operated 24/7 since the 1920s. That means 24/7, 365, right? And it's had 2 billion riders a year, okay? And they had reached a peak of 6.8. The thing about the New York City subway system is that it's commonly denigrated and derided because it's filthy. The homeless have scattered at different periods of time and lived there. And there's also been crime, and it just has not been a hospitable place. So I like to mention what my father-in-law, who was an engineer there for 30 years, driving the subways through the tunnel, says, "Hey, it's the biggest goddamn system in the world. Of course it's going to be dirty. You're moving millions of people around. My God, we don't got time to clean it up. We don't got time. And then, you get to put a homeless out all the time. Jesus, you do that. It's a full-time job. It's a beautiful system. It's the best system in the world." So with that, I know that Bill has recently taken every subway in the Far East. So, Bill, tell us a little bit about your experiences in Japan.
I took quite a few trains in Japan. We rode the subway, very interesting, very different from what we experience here. The subways are very clean. They're very quiet. They run on time. They do get crowded. You've probably seen those movies about the conductors pushing people onto the trains and all that. I didn't really experience that, but because I didn't really travel during rush hour. But the trains do get crowded, and the Tokyo station is very frenetic.
The backboard is super clean.
It's very clean. Yeah, it's very clean. And one thing that was interesting, as I said, we took the subway and we also took the Japan Rail. And on the Japan Rail, when the conductors move from car to car, before they exit a car, they turn towards the passengers and they bow. And then they turn around and go on to the next car. And the doors open automatically. You just you don't have to pull them manually. You just put your hand up and they slide. Pretty amazing. But travel was very, very easy and efficient in Japan. But we live here in New York City, and I take the train all the time now that I've moved back to Manhattan. And I'm on the subway pretty frequently, and I have my senior citizen discount Metro card. I ride for half fare, and
well, we used to, if you remember, use tokens, right?
Tokens, exactly.
And so you have to buy, I buy 50 packets beginning of the month, you know? And you have to carry this little plastic bag with these tokens that you physically put in.
Yeah. So the subway, growing up in Brooklyn, you usually took the subway to either go downtown, if you were going to A&S's or something like that, or if you were going into Manhattan. And if you recall, we never said we're going to Manhattan, we're going to the city. We always said we're going to New York. I'm going to New York today, And
it was like a separate state in a way,
Well, Brooklyn was its own city at one point, I think, up until, I don't think it became part of the city of New York until 1898. I welcome any commentary on that, but I think that's about when it became part of the city of New York. But that was like a Brooklyn expression. I'm going to New York,
We used to dress up, right? Whenever we went into the city,
Of course, yeah.
we used to dress.
Yeah, you wanted to be presentable.
I saw an AI digitized film of the 1930s, people leaving the subway.
Yeah.
And everybody's to the hills. Everybody's, the top hats, or hats and suits. I mean, they look incredibly stylish and interesting,
Yeah.
Like if you took that film today, you'd be like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. No, it's the state of humanity in terms of modern. I mean, I personally don't want to get dressed up. I mean, I'd be one of the guys with the, the leather jacket, a white, short sleeve shirt and jeans and shoes. I mean, that's how that was my outfit, and for the longest period of time. And the other thing about I just remember the thing about the subway. It is the largest system in the world, I think. And again, well, comments. And it transports more people. I think there's bigger ones in China, Russia now. But I don't buy my father-in-law's admonition. Yeah. It's too bad, you can't clean it. I don't buy it because in 1980, Richard Ravitch, who the more I read about him, he had saved the city from Beam's malfeasance in terms of the budgets in 77. He comes along, he gets assigned the New York City subway system, and he takes Rockefeller and a guy from AT&T and a guy from JP Morgan, the three largest employers in Manhattan at the time, and makes them ride the subways at 5 a.m. And the Republican purse holders up in, I think in the Congress, I don't know how that works, but bottom line, they call them all and says, give him whatever he needs. Just stay. So they ended up getting billions. People do not understand. You think it's bad today. It was riddled with homeless. It was graffiti scarred. There were broken windows. The light, you could never look at. The only thing positive to look at was the pictures of the Mrs. Subway.
Miss Subways.
Miss Subway was like, you could have pictures of all of it. It was a monthly contest.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and
right?
you could I think you could nominate someone for that. Yeah.
Yeah, March in 1978. And, I sound mean, but it was the B team. It was the B team. You certainly weren't going to step from being Mrs. Subway to Mrs. America. Does that mean, Bill? Yeah. I'm sorry. Mrs. Subway. Miss Subway.
I think when you worked as a messenger, didn't you, at one point? I know I did.
I've plenty of jobs like got fired.
And that was definitely a plus if you rode the subway, because you got a subway token. And if you could figure out a way to walk it, as opposed to taking the subway, you got yourself an extra token. But some of the things I remember about the subway, that are like, this is kind of like childhood memories etched in my mind. Do you remember the gum machines?
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah. So you could get like a package that had 2 chiclets or a stick of gum. It was like Wrigley Spearmint, Double Mint, or Juicy Fruit, and you put like 2 pennies into the machine, turn the knob, and it would come out of the machine. And then you had you could get 2 chiclets as well, and those things were all over the subway. I remember
that has such a special memory to me because, I always worked in Penn Station through my teen years. I worked at the New York Post, and I would see them things on the pillars, and now they were abandoned and unused for a decade.
That's crazy. Wow.
And they did not remove them. I saw them as late as the 80s, right? Yeah. And it made me think of the Planet of the Apes at the end, where you see, or Beneath the Planet of the Apes, where he's literally sees Pennsylvania Station. He stumbles into the abandoned subways, where all of by the way, the remaining sentient members of humanity who worship the atomic weapon, right? We're there. We're in that. We're in that. We're in the Pennsylvania station. But the point is, whenever I saw that, and it was dirty and filthy, and you go over to see if you can use it, and it was just, it was there was already gum left in there, you know. It would be like, and people forget that. I mean, I think they still exist in between the tracks, in between the stations. I mean, and in the stations themselves, there's 2 to 3 foot tranches, like places that if you were working and the train came and you didn't know, you could jump into the pit and the train would go over your head, right? And those things were, you know, filthy, rat infested, filled with, you know, oil, grease, and water, and people, asbestos, and bizarre things between the trains. You'd take a bag of rotting onions. You know what I mean? You'd see, you know, you'd see this like a bra, a big bra for a woman, very large breasts. And I just remember these images of things you see there, and people lived in those things, like lived in them and lived underneath the, and there was little rooms to the side where they kept equipment. They were intended to be for equipment, but there'd be, you know, I mentioned it in the Penn Station broadcast. Yeah, there was homeless encampments all in between the tracks. And then, you know, my buddy, I spoke to him this morning. He says they shut them down around at the beginning of the 2000s. They started putting heavy lock on the doors.
Yeah, I'd always heard about these like underground cities under the, like, you know, Grand Central, which I thought was pretty fascinating. I remember seeing a Grand Central recently, right? It's like a quick walk from where I am now, and that east side access for the Long Island Railroad is amazing. At that, you know, I mean, the project took decades, but you really go deep into the bowels of the earth there. You know, it's a deep dive.
That's like 5 stories below. And my father said there was, I don't know if it's true, apocryphal or not, there's a like a replication of the subway system in many stations all around the city. I wonder if the island itself is going to sustain all this, you know, escalation. You know, so let's start having sinkholes from all these abandoned train stations.
Well, you know what's interesting too is you were talking about these trenches and that sort of thing. Yeah. So our train station was the Newkirk Avenue station on the IRT, and it started out at the junction, you know, and heading into the city, it was the second stop. It was Newkirk Avenue, and I distinctly remember, and our listeners might remember this too, that in the middle of the tracks, you would often see a stream running through there. It was like an actual, you know, running water stream going through right down the center of the tracks. And from what I understand, and listen, I would welcome any comments on this, or if you have any insight to it, there was an actual, you know, live stream or spring that was in the Vanderveer. It was actually a wooded area that later became a housing complex called Vanderveer Estates, which was kind of notorious during the 70s. And but they couldn't do anything to stop this spring. It just naturally ran through the subway station. And that was it. I'm wondering if you still see it there today. I haven't been in that station in decades, but that I always thought was pretty interesting. I was always fascinated by it when I was a kid. And of course, you know, we were all fascinated with the third rail, right?
Yeah. It's like, you know, the fact that I used to literally get it, because they were not really well scheduled. So if it's late at night, you know, you could wait 40 minutes for the Flatbush Avenue train.
Oh, yeah.
You know? Yeah. Or if you were just going to Penn Station, you know, I remember walking between 14th and Penn Station, which in the tracks, like on the side, you know. What? I mean, yeah, we did that all the time.
What, you walk on the tracks?
Well, not so much the tracks. It would be like the side of the tracks. You know, we did it sometimes. It's just to fucking do it.
That's insane.
No, my father did it all the time. He told me, right back in the 50s, and You know,
They went into you actually went into the tunnel and
went
walked
for
on the tracks.
and walked up the side more than once. And in fact,
That is,
I had a friend who reminded me of that, you know, we would get so impatient. We had to get to Penn Station because we just moved along out. And I'm an adult now, 25 years old. And we walked in our suits from 14th to 34th.
on the tracks.
Yeah. Well, not
That's
on
crazy.
the tracks, but on the, there's this, there's little breezeways on the side. There's steps and there's, we weren't on the tracks itself, but you had to go down and in it, And so,
Okay.
we walked across. Oh shit, we're on the wrong side, right? We're on the uptown side. We got to go to the downtown side. We walked across that. What I am astonished
So like,
at the insanity.
my older brother has this story about my grandmother. This is my grandmother on my father's side, and she was definitely very eccentric. Unfortunately, she was suffering from dementia in her last years. But my brother tells this story about my grandmother taking him on the subway, and I think it was the Newkirk Avenue stop. And as kids, you didn't have to pay the full fare, so you just go under the turnstile. So this guy comes up to my grandmother and said, this had to be during the 1950s. He says, "Hey lady, I can show you how to get in for nothing, So my grandmother tells my brother, just wait here, And he says, like, grandma took off, and he says, she was gone for like a while, and it could have been 10 minutes or whatever, but like, when you're 5 or 6, it's like, 10 minutes is like a friggin' eternity, And he says he just remembers, like, a long time later, grandma like coming up out of the tunnel, coming up this like metal staircase, and this guy's helping her up, and she's got like dust all over her coat and everything,
I think that's crazy. It's so crazy.
So, yeah.
The thing was, I remember this New York City subway is part of the cultural milieu, and it still is, but it was really dominant then in the sense that, here's this massive transportation system moving millions of people around every day. And I remember the thing that I learned fairly quick was get on a packed train, Flatbush Avenue, or Penn Station. That's basically where I went. And then Wall Street when I worked in Wall Street. And you would get packed in and pushed in. Nobody would push you. You had this organic ability to get yourself in, right?
Yeah.
And then you would stand there and you are pressed up against people. I mean, you were as intimate with them as you could be. And you would have to look forward and see a space that was between the faces of the people that you were crushed up against.
Right.
You would find a place to stare, and you would stare right there. And I think that created the rudeness concept of New Yorkers, because you're in each other's space,
Yeah. I mean, you shouldn't make eye contact in general, especially with people who seem somewhat unhinged,
Well, it's a mixture of everybody.
I don't mean...
Mark Kennedy Jr. was taking the subway because it's getting downtown and getting downtown from 34th Street to Wall Street, let's say. Yeah. It's still the quickest way to get it all around the city. You're outside of maybe even biking, you're driving a car with 8,000 yellow cabs all leaning. Yeah. I mean, it's a mess. And they've made a major change this week, didn't they, in New York?
The big news story this morning, and today is April 30th, this congestion pricing is going to be rolled out on June 30th, 2 months from now. And if you take your car below 60th Street, it's going to cost you $15, passenger car. I don't know what commercial vehicles are going to be charged, but yeah. So, of course, all the PR people from the Transit Authority are talking about what a wonderful system we have and all that. And there was only one felony reported yesterday, and crime is down. Yeah. Which, again, like you were saying before, it's a huge system, to have.
I still think I don't buy that we can't fix it and make it as clean as.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it can be done. I think it can be done, and it's going to, require some public cooperation as well. But I still think it's a remarkably good system. Not perfect, and it can be pretty dirty at sometimes. But look, I can tell you, the Second Avenue subway, which was many, many, many years, decades in the making, it's like a godsend. They have stops from 63rd Street all the way up to 96th, and the East Siders don't have to walk all the way over to Lexington Avenue now. They can just pick the train up at on Second Avenue. Which is great.
So the only, it's the only other subway system I still have avoided when I was working across from Radio City Music Hall, my last job before I retired, News Corp, right? When I avoided, I'd go there 2 days a week post-COVID, and I just walked.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to the subways, right? And I have the old recollection, my spidey sense is up on the walk. I saw a guy get punched in the face in front of me. I stepped over a homeless guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I'm back in New York, because it had been years since I did a regular scenario.
It's funny. I had used the subway system, the metro system in Chicago for like 3 years when I was in law school.
How was that?
It's a little old. I haven't been on it, since I've lived in Chicago, which is over 30 years. But it was pretty good. It had a pretty efficient system, and they had, monthly passes long before New York had that. And that was great as a student. That was a big savings. But I didn't think it was a bad system. But
one that I think was actually worse, if I dare say, and it didn't have homeless and it wasn't as dirty, but it just was old.
Yeah,
was inefficient. Was when I was in London. I worked in London for a bit, and so at the Waterloo station.
Yeah,
and you have to pay to go and pee. To use the men's room, you had to pay.
Yeah.
So if you're having pints, which is what you do in London, right? You're having 5 or 6.
Indeed.
Yes. You need a men's room, right? So you're fine. You're at an 8.2, out of 10, and you're going down. And then now you have to figure out how to put. You put £4 in now, and you go right through the turnstile. You need to have your £4 ready. And I'm like, what the hell is £4? And I'm like fumbling through all these coins. I got Euro coins because I was in Europe, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing here, And so I looked at this cop, they call him Bobby, right? And he's standing near a door, and if you try to jump into the bathroom, you get arrested or you get accosted.
I don't want that.
Yeah. Right. And so I go up to the guy, says, dude, I'm American. I can't figure this out. I'm at a 9.4. Right? And I give him the 2 pounds. And I says, I'll sort it out on my own. Let me in. And he let me in through the gate. And I barely made it. And I had beige pants and was going through a presentation. I barely made it. Can I come out? I'm breathing heavy. And he goes, look at Americans, man. like bloody Americans.
Yeah.
You're a bunch of idiots.
In Japan, though, they have public toilets like everywhere. It's great for, anybody with...
Are they super clean?
They're very clean. Yeah, even the dirty ones are clean, Well,
I think cleanliness is the choice. Yeah. I don't buy all this bullshit that we can't clean stuff up.
Yeah.
And as I'm always saying, I think, social media has rendered us ungovernable, and we can't even agree on things we used to agree on, like the subways need a major upgrade. But with that, I'd like to end this episode of the Brooklyn Junction, focused on the New York City subway. We're going to have some actual employees join us, as well as all of the winners.
That would be so cool.
Of subway from March 1973 to June. They're going to join us. Now, they've got walkers and they're using walkers. I'm just kidding. But, Bill, I enjoyed this little reminiscing around our experiences in the subway. We'll go on to the next one. Why don't you say goodbye?
Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for listening. And be sure to like and subscribe. And we welcome comments and corrections, by the way. If you want to...
We want an angry page. We want an angry YouTube comment field.
Yes.
All right, Bill, I'll see you later.
Right.
Thank you. Here she is, Mrs. Subway.
Just Sliding Away, written, recorded, and performed by William Turley.